This is what we vote for. This is really what we vote for, man. We vote for PPP. And look what happened with Abby in Blackbush here right now. All the crops underwater, and Minister Zulfikar cannot send an excavator to help us. And he thieving out all the money and build property for him. And he cannot send an excavator to help us. The next time Blackbush voting for Win, we voting for Mohammed next time. We are not taking fool by the PPP next time. We are voting for Mohammed next time.
Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're doing a deep dive into this single, really sharp point of tension. It's that exact spot where massive kind of abstract government spending just collides, almost violently, with an urgent, immediate crisis on the ground.
Exactly.
So our sources for this deep dive are very concentrated. They're focused on a severe, really damaging flood in a community called Blackbush and, well, the equally severe allegations of political neglect, even outright financial misappropriation.
And it's aimed at a specific official.
Right. Our mission here is to synthesize the direct emotional appeals you hear in the raw voices of residents, with the cold, hard, factual claims and the financial questions being raised.
Yeah.
It's a shortcut, really, to understanding how infrastructure failure translates almost instantly into political revolt.
And what we're looking at here is a stark and I think crucial lesson in political accountability. It shows how physical infrastructure, specifically the failure of these drainage systems, it immediately becomes intensely personal for residents. The sources give you this raw view of the damage, the calls for intervention from the very top, and of course the implications this has for public trust in the whole political system. So we're not just looking at what happened, but why the response, or maybe the lack of one, ignited such a radical shift in loyalty.
Okay, so what are we working on?
We have two core pieces of evidence today. There's an audio excerpt that, wow, it really captures the immediate frustration of a resident who's facing ruin. And then there's a text excerpt making a really unambiguous demand for action and for accountability.
Okay.
And both of these sources, they anchor their entire analysis on this disaster in Blackbush and that critical question around where public money is going.
Let's start right there on the ground, because that's where the crisis begins. That's where trust first starts to erode. The urgency in these sources, it's immediate. This isn't just, some water pooling on a street. This is total economic devastation for people whose entire livelihood depends on the soil. You can just hear it in the resident's voice in that audio clip. It grounds the crisis in real, immediate loss. He just says, simply, all the crops on the water.
That's devastating.
For a farming community, that single line it's everything. It means not just a bad season, but the total loss of capital, of income, of months of work, wiped out instantly because the flood defenses failed.
And that immediate tangible loss is what drives the demand for high-level intervention. It shifts from being, a local maintenance issue to a full-blown political emergency. And the text source reinforces this. It relays this direct demand from Azzuddin Mohammed, who says Minister Zulfikar Mustapha needs to get up and head to Blackbush immediately.
That's a powerful statement.
This call for the minister's physical presence is so critical. It emphasizes the perceived failure of all the lower operational levels. When residents are demanding the top official show up, they're basically saying that the entire chain of command beneath him is just not responding.
Paralyzed.
Exactly. They feel that without that high-level intervention, essential resources are simply not going to move.
So that analysis of the immediate disconnect is really the first major insight we get from the sources. When a visible disaster like this flood happens and the community feels ignored, the crisis quickly becomes about more than just the water. The physical crisis is the flooding, sure, but the deeper political problem that generates all this heat is the failure of immediate resource deployment. Specifically, the lack of a single needed piece of equipment.
And this is where it gets really interesting.
This is where we pivot from the disaster itself to the alleged dollars and cents, and the whole picture changes. The document claims hundreds of billions have been spent on drainage, yet this community is completely underwater. How do you even analyze that enormous budget figure when you place it right next to the devastation we just heard about?
Well, this contradiction is the heart of systemic governance failure. It really is. The government can, rightfully point to contracts and spending spreadsheets that show vast investment. In this case, the hundreds of billions that have been spent on drainage.
A huge number.
It's a figure that's supposed to be a source of national pride, of security, but the moment a single, visible tool like an excavator is missing when it's needed, the community judges those hundreds of billions not by the paper trail, but by the water rising in their own homes.
Of course.
It leads very naturally to the critical question that the sources explicitly raise. Where did the money go?
Exactly. When people are ruined, despite these promises of protection backed by massive budgets, the focus shifts entirely from, say, technical water management to financial probity. The implied conclusion is that the money was diverted, and the sources, they do not hesitate to make that specific and very severe accusation.
What's so fascinating here is how the source ties that macro failure, the big picture, to the micro machine. The resident in the audio uses this powerful local term, alleging that Minister Zulfikar Mustapha teen out all the money.
Oh, teen out.
Yeah. That phrase is a direct and forceful accusation. It's essentially alleging that the minister outright stole or misappropriated public funds. And not just that, but that he used it to build property for him, implying just egregious personal gain.
So they believe that instead of using this vast drainage budget to actually maintain systems or, crucially, send one single machine to help them when the crisis hit, the money was lining private pockets.
And that single missing excavator becomes the ultimate symbol of that betrayal.
Right. It's the one thing they needed.
Billions were supposedly spent on systemic solutions, and yet the community needed one simple mechanical intervention, and it never arrived. So the people, they aren't judging the minister on his portfolio or his policies. They're judging him on his failure to dispatch the one piece of equipment that could have saved their crops. The excavator is the tangible evidence of systemic neglect.
And that failure to act, the lack of that one necessary machine, leads us directly to the political consequences. And these are, I think, the most striking details in the sources. When trust breaks down this fundamentally, the results are immediate, they're absolute, and they were declared very publicly.
Very publicly.
The source links the failure directly to the governing party. It captures the resident's shock, his palpable frustration, saying, this is what we vote for. This is really what we vote for, man. We vote for PPP.
And for our listeners who might not follow this specific geopolitical context, the PPP is the People's Progressive Party Civic, the incumbent ruling party.
Right, the party in power. So this statement, it's a profound public declaration of political remorse, of betrayal, and it's broadcast straight from the flooded fields.
It's the sound of political loyalty just collapsing under the weight of floodwater. The sources reveal that this failure to provide essential, tangible services in a crisis, it quickly translates into a concrete and immediate declaration of future political intent. It really illustrates that for the average voter, security and service delivery can trump historical loyalty during moments of crisis.
And the sources give us a very specific declaration about future elections. The resident states it clearly. The next time Black was voting for Win, we voting for Mo next time.
Wow.
It signals a profound shift, an explicit turning away from the incumbent party and toward an alternative figure or a political force named Mo. This Mo is clearly understood, at least locally, as a credible, viable alternative.
The crucial point here is that the electorate isn't just expressing disappointment.
No.
They're announcing a complete operational shift. But the level of distrust, it goes even deeper than who they vote for next. Look at the refusal of basic aid.
Yes, that part was stunning.
The resident makes this incredibly strong statement indicating a complete rejection of any connection, any aid at all from the incumbent party, declaring, "We are not taking food by the PPP. Next time we are voting for M next time."
That is a staggering statement. Refusing even basic survival aid food. It suggests that the community believes the damage done by the neglect, by the flood itself, is less insulting than a hollow gesture of a government handout.
And this raises an important question for you, the listener, about the nature of political capital. How does the perception of corruption, the money allegedly spent on personal property versus public drainage, how does that immediately translate into not just a rejection of the party, but a rejection of basic humanitarian relief? It shows that when public trust is entirely shattered, the political relationship is severed so totally that even emergency assistance is seen as a bribe.
Or a PR stunt.
Or a hollow PR stunt, exactly. Rather than genuine relief, they're using the rejection of food as their ultimate political weapon.
So these sources really provide a profound lesson in governance.
Absolutely. Public trust hinges not just on the promise of massive high-level projects or big budget lines, but on immediate, tangible, and ethical help during a crisis. The perceived abuse of the macro budget, those hundreds of billions allegedly diverted, is judged entirely by the failure to deliver the micro solution.
That one piece of equipment.
That one piece of functional equipment that was so desperately needed.
So we've synthesized the narrative that runs between the two poles of this deep dive. On one hand, the macro claim of billions spent on drainage, and on the other, the devastating micro reality of a single needed excavator that never arrived, leading to crop loss and, well, political revolt. It's a powerful indictment of accountability.
So what does this all mean for the broader context of governance? I mean, the sources we've examined illustrate that accountability is measured by decisive ethical action in moments of crisis, not just by the sheer volume of money promised in a budget speech. When that spending fails to translate into protection, and specific allegations surface that funds were diverted for private gain,
Right.
the resulting loss of faith is immediate and catastrophic for the ruling power. And we see it demonstrated here by a local community declaring they will switch their vote and reject all incumbent aid.
And that collapse of trust doesn't just impact the next election cycle. It fundamentally changes the civic relationship. We've seen the specific local consequence of this alleged failure. A community underwater, declaring a vote shift and refusing government assistance because they see the entire system as corrupt.
We've seen how the promise of large-scale infrastructure spending, when combined with these specific local allegations of corruption like funds being teed out for private property, can fundamentally reshape local political loyalty. So consider this. What other local failures, what other desperately needed excavators might be brewing just beneath the surface of massive national budgets that fail to deliver basic, tangible protection?
That's something for you to mull over as you consume the next headline about government spending.